Hey guys, it's Mike here, and in this video, I'm going to be discussing another What If Versus battle that would have theoretically occurred in the future Trunks timeline of Dragon Ball Z. This would be a battle between future Gohan, the master and mentor of future Trunks, and future Trunks, the very first time that he showed up in the story, slicing and dicing Frieza. Who is actually more powerful between the two at that point in time, and who would have been able to win their battle? Well, as I always do, I'm going to be going in depth into this using the manga and anime where needed, and additionally, I'm also going to be presenting the strengths, weaknesses, and everything on display for both fighters to make the ultimate determination about who would win this fight. But before I begin, if you guys are new to this channel, consider subscribing and enabling all notifications. That way you could stay up to date with all of my future videos. Additionally, make sure to leave a like, share this video out, and also make sure to stay the entire time. That way you'll be able to see and understand every single thing I'm talking about, all the ins and outs. And additionally, you'll be able to help this channel to grow and to go further beyond, even further beyond. But with that being said, guys, let's get into the video. So let's begin with future Gohan, the first character in this battle who is the mentor of future Trunks that we could see right here in the History of Trunks, or Trunks the Story section of the Dragon Ball manga, and also in the anime. Now, let's keep in mind, with regards to the manga, the chapter that we see future Trunks and future Gohan appearing in their future, and don't take a shot every single time I say future in this video or else you're gonna die, this was only a half chapter, which in turn means that it was nowhere near as expansive as even a regular chapter would have been, and not just that, but wasn't exactly multiple. It was just one that was set in the manga around the time of the Cell games. Now, in the future, we do see Gohan, who in his base form, with just the one arm, is able to fight and spar with future Super Saiyan Trunks. Someone, as we could see, clearly isn't anywhere near as powerful as you would expect a Super Saiyan to be, but then again, this might be a fight rather than being one of physical force, is rather one that is more about controlling the energy of the Super Saiyan. Either way, Gohan, the next panel, says that he believes that Trunks would be able to catch up to him in just a few more months, which plays a big role in this, guys, so, stay tuned for that. And also, in terms of his overall power, he probably did become at least a little bit weakened after he had lost his arm, because as we saw in the future, or really in the past, depending upon your perspective here, Gohan as a Super Saiyan 2 was said by himself to Goku in the afterlife that he had lost half of his chi when his very same arm, in fact, was broken by Super Perfect Cell's attack. And in the manga, we never actually see what happens. In the anime, it was during a fight between future Gohan as a Super Saiyan against the Android 17, and then Trunks as fighting against, in just his base form, against the Android 18. Gohan flew in to try and save him. Then they used a area of effect attack, and as a result, Gohan lost his arm and barely survived. Now, one thing that we have to point out too in terms of Gohan's power is that Trunks says that Gohan looks a lot like his father when he's wearing the gi, which is something he heard from his mom. At that point, Gohan says that he wears it because he hopes that he could be as strong as his dad before he passed away. But it's not as easy as it seems. So in other ways, it seems like it's implying here that Gohan is actually weaker here as a Super Saiyan, even after this training and stuff, than Goku was when he died in the future timeline. But just how powerful would Goku have been? Well, let's find that out in this video. So in terms of what level of power Goku would have been, it probably would have been something akin to what we saw from Goku after he returned from planet Yardrat. Now, at this time in the original timeline in History of Trunks, when Goku returned to the Earth, what happened was he actually killed King Cold and Frieza, which I discussed in a video you guys can see in the top right corner about how that fight played out. In fact, he was already actually going to do that in this timeline until he sensed Trunks' energy and decided to just wait until his ship landed on the Earth normally. Now, when Goku became a Super Saiyan, he was able to go up against Super Saiyan Future Trunks. I'll expand upon this a lot more in depth when it comes time to get into Future Trunks and his overall power. But nonetheless, Goku at this point in the timeline would not have been vastly more powerful than he was here. Because in the main timeline and the unseen timeline, after Future Trunks showed up and explained the threat of the androids, everyone trained for 3 years in preparation for them. And so Goku as a Super Saiyan trained with Gohan and Piccolo. Vegeta trained in the gravity chamber, trying to catch up to not only the power of Goku, but also of Future Trunks after he experienced his power firsthand. And all the other Z fighters also trained to get so much stronger, so in turn they would be able to defeat the androids, or at the very least not get killed in the future. However, in the Future Trunks storyline, this is not what happened. Rather, they had no idea any threats stronger than Frieza were ever going to show up, and so it's likely that at the most Vegeta tried to catch up to the power and surpass it of Goku from Yardrat, but not just that, but also Goku wouldn't have gotten any significant gains, because why would he? What was he really preparing for? Any life or death battles? Not quite so much. So as a result, Goku wouldn't have been that much stronger than Yardrat Goku by the time that he died, and thus in turn Gohan here is weaker than that. In terms of just how strong Gohan would have been, well, we don't know that for a fact, but we do get another inkling of Gohan's power in the manga version. And that's after he becomes a Super Saiyan and then attacks Android 17. Now, Gohan went into this battle not expecting to survive. He actually says this right here to Trunks, where after he knocked him out, he tells him that if he were to die too, which means that Gohan is already saying he's going to die, there will be no one left to protect the Earth. Someday, Trunks would be able to defeat the androids. Another thing worth noting is that Trunks makes great mention of Gohan's arm, saying that with his arm gone, he probably stands less of a chance than he did before, which only makes sense in terms of hand-to-hand combat and overall levels of power. And as I mentioned before, with Gohan as a kid in the Cell games, losing theoretically half his power, assuming that wasn't all a mental block, which I've discussed in videos in the past. Now, according to Gohan, he's been training hard in order to defeat the androids at this point, and he actually believes that he would be able to defeat Android 17. Now, this is the really important part, especially in the manga version. At this point, Android 17 tells Gohan that he was only using half of his power the last time the two of them fought. In other words, Gohan trained to get up to a level that was maybe a little bit stronger than half of Android 17's power. And thus, as we see, when Android 17 goes at full power to attack Gohan, saying that he won't escape and that he's going to die, Gohan in the manga doesn't even have a response. You could see on his face, it tells the entire story. He knows he's going to die. This is a, well, I'm dead moment. And so too does Android 18. Now, in the anime version, as you guys can see, Gohan puts up a significantly better fight than he did during the manga version, where he gets killed entirely off screen. In the anime version, he's able to fight against both the androids at once and even overpower both of them with a ki blast at one point. So he has a far more heroic type of ending and resolution, and it seems that Gohan in the anime special is way more powerful than the Gohan from this one, where it seems like he might have been able to kill future Android 17 or 18. And also discussed in a video that you guys can see in the top right corner whether or not the future androids were actually weaker than the main timeline ones, because there's definitely a lot to play into that, such as the scene that we could see right here, where Trunks was actually unconscious during the scene in which Android 17 revealed to future Gohan that he was only using half his strength the last time they fought. So 3 years later, when Trunks is the same age that he is when he goes back in time, now 17, he goes off to fight the androids, and during that point, he gets defeated. And he just assumes when he goes to the main timeline that the androids were probably going all out when they defeated him. However, that isn't true, because for all we know, they were using the same amount of power that they had used against Gohan before with regard to Trunks. So with Gohan's manga and anime power explained, let's get into the power of future Trunks at the time. Now, when Trunks shows up in the story, the first thing that we see is him killing the various different henchmen of Frieza, followed by the Emperor of the Universe and his father themselves. And we know that Frieza at this point is actually stronger than he was when he fought against Goku on Namek. He says right here to his father, if the two of us work together, we're sure to defeat him. But now that I've powered up, I could likely take care of him myself. Now, of course, Frieza cannot sense energy, so there's a chance that him saying likely and him still planning to team up with King Cold is implication that he's actually weaker than Goku on Namek. However, there definitely is a strong possibility that that is not the case, and that maybe he's stronger than Goku was on Namek when he actually shows up on planet Earth in order to fight him with his father. Nonetheless, after becoming a Super Saiyan, Future Trunks is still able to easily defeat Frieza and his father. Now, with that being said, we're never really told that Frieza went full 100% power in terms of like everything he can give. In the English anime, he does say, oh, here's full power and stuff like that. But nonetheless, when we actually see him here in the manga, he just goes to attack Trunks without even powering up. He doesn't have his aura around him, anything like that. We don't see him bulk up at all with at least the non-mechanical enhancements. So there's an argument to be made here that Frieza never truly went full power when Trunks killed him. And not just that, but Trunks also caught Frieza off guard, blasting at his feet, causing him to go up in the air, and then just chopping him up after that point, and then vaporizing the pieces. So again, Trunks didn't exactly fight Frieza in a battle like Goku did. He just went for the kill as quickly as he possibly could. He would also do the same thing against King Cold, who is dumb enough to think that Trunks only won because of the sword, and then in turn, he goes on to kill him as well. Now, a lot of people do assume that King Cold is stronger than Frieza. I talked about that in a video you guys can see in the top right corner. Nonetheless, the fact of the matter is that Trunks is definitely more powerful than the two of them for sure, and probably more powerful than Goku was on Namek here. But at the same time, when Trunks went off to fight the androids, his power was compared to future Gohan's, who, according to Bulma, questions whether or not Trunks was actually stronger than him at the time. And we can make the assumption that maybe he was stronger here by the time he goes off to fight, where he's even saying that things will be different, which of course they don't end up being. But again, Gohan here is stated by himself to probably not be as strong as his father was before he passed away, and we already established how strong that theoretically would have been. Now, later on in the story, we get a direct comparison between the power of Goku and future Trunks, where we see both Goku and Trunks become Super Saiyans and begin to spar with one another. At first, Trunks went to slash at Goku, but Goku didn't do anything because he detected that Trunks was not going to hurt him because he doesn't have any malicious intent. At this point, Trunks says that he's actually going to hit Goku with this blade, and then in turn, Goku goes to infuse his ki into his finger so that he'll be able to match Trunks' sword. At this point, this is what we see, where Trunks is slashing at Goku, and in turn, he isn't able to hurt him. Even saying here that it's amazing, the stories I've heard about you are really true. No, you're even better than the stories. And he says, this is the same sword I used to slice right through Frieza, at which point Goku says, that's only because you weren't trying your hardest. So these are some things that people really overlook, this statement here. Goku says that Trunks actually wasn't trying his hardest here, whereas he did with Frieza and King Cold. He didn't hold back because he wanted to kill them as quickly as possible and eliminate their threat, because future Trunks, at least in this arc, doesn't mess around. Not just that, but a lot of people assume that Goku just infusing his ki into his finger automatically makes him way more powerful than future Trunks. But the truth of the matter is that's also not really the case, because when you think about it, what is Goku doing here? Well, he's doing basically the same things that Trunks does, where when Trunks goes to attack somebody, he's instilling and infusing his chi, his ki, directly into his blade. You could see right before he goes to swing it at Goku, his ki is enveloping the blade with his aura, which is basically making it to where he's hitting Goku with a weapon which is filled well with ki. And so basically when this is happening, this isn't a battle between Goku's finger and its durability versus Trunks and his blade and the sword, but rather instead, it's actually a battle of the two and their ki. And as Goku says right here, Trunks wasn't trying as hard as he could because, well, obviously if he did and he messed up and he killed Goku, that would kind of ruin the entire trip and he'd have to make another timeline where it also did not kill Goku. And maybe he did this right before this and he's like, we went through about 4 Gokus before we met you. But at the same time, Goku wasn't really going all out either. So we know that Goku is no doubt stronger, at least a little bit, than he was on Namek, even though most of his training went to learning how to use the Shunkan Ito or the instant transmission and just being able to tap into Super Saiyan whenever he wants to. Whereas with Trunks, we don't know just how much stronger he might have been than Goku on Namek, but again, it's arguable that the two of them are in a similar tier of power because neither one of them was actually going all out. And this is something we actually get direct confirmation of, because despite the fact that Goku trained for 3 years as a Super Saiyan, and Vegeta also trained to become a Super Saiyan, go past Goku and his power that he sensed when he was fighting against Trunks, as well as Trunks' power, there's still an implication that Trunks isn't too far away from the other Super Saiyans who trained for 3 years. And how do we know this? Well, this dates back to the fight first between Android 18 and Vegeta, and then when everyone jumps in. Now, when both Vegeta and 18 are going full power according to their own statements, which I talked about in a video you guys can see in the top right corner, Trunks was amazed by the power of Vegeta on display, saying he didn't realize just how powerful he was and that he was holding his own against 18. However, as Piccolo says, Vegeta is going to lose because the fact that Android 18 was wearing him down, and that even though Vegeta, maybe he wasn't the exact same level of power as 18, he was still able to put up a fight against her, and the main reason why she eventually wins is because she wears him down, starts to deal more damage, and then in turn breaks his arm. This is what leads to Trunks jumping in to try and save him. Of course, at this point, it doesn't really fare well for him or anyone else. Now, interestingly, you could see that when Trunks goes to swing at Android 18, his sword actually breaks on Android 18's forearm. It does do a little bit of damage to her clothing, as you can see it goes there and damages it, which means it was able to get through her defenses when she's already in the middle of fighting and powered up. But it's a little bit similar in a sense to what we see right here with Goku and future Trunks, in which Goku is blocking Trunks' sword because of his own level of power. Trunks, however, unlike in this case, actually does try against Android 18. One of the ones he says is stronger than his own future versions. Nonetheless, he's still one shot and everyone is taken out. And after that happens, when everyone is revived using the sensu beans, what happens is that Tien makes this statement, which is in regard to the power of Trunks. And he says, we're talking about the man who's able to kill Frieza without breaking his sweat. And even he wasn't a match for the artificial humans. We need to face the facts. No matter how strong Goku might be, he won't fare much better than Trunks or Vegeta did. So it seems like Tien is implying the power of Trunks is still within the realm of power of Vegeta, who stayed to be even stronger than Goku at this point, as I discussed in a video you guys can see in the top right corner. And not just that, but also Goku, after 3 years of training as a Super Saiyan after he had already fought Trunks. So even then, Trunks still is implied to be in the same level of power, and we're never given any indication that Trunks actually trained in the 3 years between him going to the future again, then returning to the present, or whatever happened there. I actually plan to discuss that even more in depth in a video, but we don't know for a fact that 3 years actually passed for Trunks, and nonetheless, there's no real inclination or impression that he's gotten stronger since the last time we saw him. So everything we're seeing here is actually saying that Trunks is likely more powerful than future Gohan in this point in the story. That whereas future Gohan was said to be weaker than Goku in both the anime and in the manga version. And we see that he was maybe a little bit stronger than half of Android 17's power, if that, at this point in time. In the manga version, at least, it's implied that Trunks is more powerful than he is. Now, with regard to the anime version, you can argue based upon the feat of Gohan fight against Android 17 and 18 that he is more powerful than everyone in the Cell Saga at this point in the main timeline, with the exception of the androids. It might be more akin to like Super Namekian Piccolo after he merges with Kami, in which case he would easily be able to defeat future Trunks, Goku, and Vegeta at the same time, considering just how big of a boost there was for Piccolo at that point, to where he was not only able to fight against Cell when he first showed up, but also was able to fight against Android 17 and would have beaten him at points if not for the barrier. So with that being said, who would actually win out of the two of these fighters? Well, let's look at that in my conclusion. So future Gohan versus future Trunks from his initial appearance. Who would actually win? Well, there's another factor we didn't consider here, which is, what if Gohan still had his arm and he had the same level of power? Well, I think at that point that he would stand a far better chance against Trunks, but in the manga continuity it seems clear that Trunks is actually more powerful than future Gohan was. If we're talking about the anime future Gohan versus future Trunks, then there's far more of an argument to be made that he would be able to win there even with the single arm, just because the incredible feat of power we see him using against the androids. Maybe you can argue that they were still holding back until they finally went full power at the very end and killed him, but even then, the fact of the matter is that he shows to be stronger than all the Super Saiyans at this point in time, even if you want to say the future androids are weaker, and thus as a result should still be able to defeat Trunks, especially if he had two arms with that level of power at that time in the anime version. So it comes down to a difference in adaptation. But what do you guys think? Let me know your own thoughts down below in the comments. Also, if you're new here, consider subscribing, enabling all notifications so you can watch all my future videos and see that much more. Make sure to leave a like, share this video out with your friends. Thanks for staying the whole time. You guys are awesome. And make sure to stick around because there's a lot more to come in the future.
Yeah, and you better subscribe.